Okay, thought I would get episode 22 going just a little bit early just so I can get some of the spiel out of the way. Welcome to episode 22. My name is Briley. I'll be showing you guys a few tips and tricks within ZBrush. Let's just make sure everything is kind of going. Check some of the... Okay, yeah, looks like we're going on YouTube. Let's just double check Twitch, make sure everything's pretty good on. And it looks like I'm connecting to Facebook. Let's make sure we're good on that. Alright. Okay, looks like we're connected there. Looks like we're connected, so good. As I said, I'm Briley. You can actually find my work at www.bbriley.com. Check out the home, kind of did some of the different stuff I've done. I also have a shop where I sell kits, different busts, t-shirts, stickers. Appreciate you guys checking it out and supporting. Also about, you can actually find how I began my career, where I came from, all kind of stuff, along with my Facebook, YouTube, all the general info and the clients and games, some of the games. Some things I still cannot tell because of NDA, along with those clients. My work, you just click on that and there's 2D work, 3D work, and just the general work if you want to find out more of what I do. The press I need to update, but this is where you can find the videos and any interviews I have done. And always to contact, just drop me a line. You could also find me at artstation.com/spark. Try to kind of, this is a little bit more of my game stuff. And you could also find me at instagram.com/bbriley_art. This is just where I post some of the latest stuff I've done. Still trying to get into it and still trying to add followers and stuff. It's a hard game. I also am with a group of guys, James Kane and Martin Verhoeven, very talented guys. Together we're grim, but together we are grim. And you can find us at www.wearegrim.com. Pretty much just shows some of the different stuff that we do. We do have kits that we have available. Jungle Warrior just came out from Martin. We only have a few left if you're interested. Bluebeard from James. Cthulhu from Martin and Aqualian. And also you can find within the shop a few with other ones, along some of my older ones. The Lighthouse Keeper from James, the Shovel Bust from myself, and some of my older kits as well. About us, if you want to find out, it just tells the breakdown. There's James, Martin, and myself, and some of the different history between us, and all together, all the clients that we have, quite a long list, and then our work, the variety of my work. Hopefully, can you guys ever hear? Hopefully, people are going to pop in. Some of the different stuff we've done, the different press as well. We're still kind of updating that, and contact us through that. And we also have Instagram. .com/wearegrim, where we kind of are updating some of the different prints and items and things that we have done. So okay, let's go ahead and get on to today's lesson. I'm just going to kind of, I have a short day, so I'm not going to be able to do too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off with the normal head, like I've been doing, just a general scanned head of an older man kind of stuff. I broke it down and I separated it, made it even symmetrical so I can play with it, and brought on some levels, which I normally do. You can find out how I do that in different episodes. So what we're going to do is just push and pull. I'm going to probably show you some ZSpheres and a couple other ones as soon as people pop in, because not too sure of the time. So yeah, still not quite 3 o'clock, so as people kind of pile in. Can everybody hear me okay? Anybody there? 37 lurkers. So I got my spiel done. I might do that a little bit soon, so now when 3 o'clock hits, I'm going right into the demo and things. So okay. So usually what I do on these things, to make sure my symmetry's on, I go down to a lower level, and I'm just going to start pushing and pulling and finding the forms. I'm looking at the character, what he has. You know, I usually, I'm probably, since I'm not really thinking today about anything what I'm going to do, I'm probably just going to make this more insect, more praying mantis, more alien, again. And usually to make it alien, a quick way to do it, if you're ever going to break down your creatures or characters or concepts, as humans we have 4 senses, you know, sight, smell, taste, hearing. So by taking out one of those general forms, really also makes it kind of odd looking, alien-esque. So I'm going to probably play with that just by taking out the nose and probably make this guy a little bit more elf looking for a second, and pulling. And I'm going to probably, been having trouble lately with my ZBrush where it kind of sucks my brush. It kind of sticks to it and kind of pulls it. So as you see right there, by using those, just taking out the nose just a little bit, keeping the mouth, it already kind of looks a little bit alien. I'll play. I'm not too sure if anybody is. Let's see if. Not so sure if. Looks like I'm connected, but I'm not seeing anybody chime in yet. So. There we go. Thank you, Zasin Kitsune. Appreciate it. Good. I just wanted to make sure that was kind of working before I continued too far, in case I needed to fix it. Sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm going to kind of play off the cheekbones. I'm going to pull them out a little bit and probably bring up the mouth just some. How's it going, Stepan? And not just too much detail right now. I'm just looking for some of the general forms before I start pulling in some of the ZSphere data. So as you can see, by taking out that nose, making the eye region a little bit larger, that's going to kind of really help. I'm going to go up on a little bit of layer. And because this scan that I was using had its eyes closed, I can actually kind of change. I don't have to, I can draw my own eye section in there pretty easily. So I'm going to kind of maybe detail out the nose, bring your attention down, follow the flow of the face, and by doing directional lines into the face, I can actually just sit there and play with it. Somehow this was actually it was a scanned head. I kind of cleaned it up by doing a ZRemesh just to kind of show you guys how you could just take a scan data head, play with it, look for the forms in the actor's head, just like you would for a traditional visual effects artist. They can play off and build the clay and do the details, given some of it. But I'm going to show some of the different things that you could do with ZBrush that you wouldn't be able to do in a traditional way, such as dig into the actor's head. I don't think that'd be too much fun for that person. How's it going, D-World? D-World, you could, always drop me a line through my emails or whatever. I'll try to get back to you. There's a lot of different forms you can kind of look into. If you do something on ZBrush Central, you can get some great feedback there as well. If you're more towards game, then you could actually just go to like polycount.com or CG Society, or there's a lot of great places you can kind of try to go ahead and get feedback and post. There's a lot of people looking for feedback, but or if you have a local art community where a lot of people are hanging together, I would just start getting involved in clubs and other people that do the same thing as you to get feedback. Okay, I'm just going to kind of pull this down. Just give myself a little bit more neck. I'm going to, generally what I keep to very basic stuff. As you see, my startup ZBrush is pretty much what you will see if you're just getting into ZBrush. I keep it very simple for those coming into it. Try not to make it too difficult, because ZBrush can get pretty, it's very powerful. One of the most powerful tools I've ever used, so you can get kind of lost pretty quickly. So I try to keep it to where I am just doing basic things, just the sculpt, working on that. I'm turning on local symmetry now, so whenever I hit my pivot, I'm pivoting off of wherever I left off. So this is very helpful. I'm using my move tool. I have a keyboard shortcut where 1 is my standard, 2 is my regular standard, move brush, 3 is trim dynamic, pinch, clay, 6 is N flat, 7 is my damn standard, and 8 is my Z modeler if I ever want to do any more like building a hard surface and stuff. So, alright, now that I have this kind of going, usually I'll make a duplicate of this before I continue, but I already kind of started. So I'm going to just make this a little bit larger. because I'm just going to go, not necessarily a green alien, but I'm going to definitely go more insect. And I'm going to kind of play with the thoughts that a lot of insects have kind of like a flat forehead. So it's kind of not be a round necessarily, it's going to kind of tear up and widen. So now I'm going to show you something to where, let's get the eyeballs in there. And usually how I just make eyeballs, I'll just do a quick append tool and select that level. Make sure you have this layer selected on so I could actually see the layer before that I'm working on, and also this layer right here. I'm going to turn on the gizmo, which is this button right up here, and I'm going to just place the yellow bar right there is a uniform scale between X, Y, and Z. And so I'm just going to give myself an eyeball just to play with. Alright. And I can always just make that larger or smaller here in a second. I'm going to go to Z plugin and down to something called Subtool Master, and I'm going to click on that. It comes with ZBrush, and I'm just going to mirror. And I'm merging this into one subtool. I'm not going to append it as a separate subtool. If I clicked on append, it would just put another layer. So it would do two separate eyeballs, but I want to work on the eyes of the same. So I want to merge it into the one layer, and I'm going to do the X-axis, which is going to go across the face. Y would actually be, back, front to back, and then Z would be top to bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that. So now I have these eyes. All right. This is just, I use spheres a lot, and just because, it helps me kit bash or thought or piece things together, and it's something really quick. It's a basic geometric shape that you should just play with. So now when you have the default, even though this is symmetrical, and let me just go ahead and rename it eyes. By default it doesn't have the symmetry on, so I'm just going to hit X to go from the symmetry, and I'm going to go to Marlon Nunez's Mr. Eyeball that you can actually get if you look up on his name. And I'm going to turn on material because I just want to pick up this material substance. I don't want to do any kind of RGB, which is the color, or the mixture of those two at this moment. And I'm going to go to draw, and I'm going to, color, and I'm going to say fill the object. So that should have put that material, so I can go back to my sculpting, and I have that material selected to it. So Z98 is the one that I particularly like to model on. So that way it kind of gives me some separation, and I can take a look at what I'm doing. So I want to visualize what is the eyes, what is the surrounding skin, and everything else. So absolutely, D-World. How's it going, Sorgit? Hey, what's up, Pre-Jag? Happy Friday. Yeah, no doubt. Thank God it's Friday. So now that I'm back here, I can then go up on my different levels, and I can start. And I had kind of like, I'm looking for happy accidents sometimes, because like this weird, usually you have the full eyes, selected, but I actually kind of like the fact that this is kind of coming up and giving me some kind of weird teardrop stuff. So I'm going to play off of it. And that's the thing, when I'm sculpting, I look for things that, look kind of funky, or I'm just looking for forms. I'm not really too concerned with, I have to have the best piece, or I have to do whatever. This could be pure trash. But me going through the process of sculpting and practicing and everything just builds up for anything else later. Or a lot of times what I'll do is I'll pull things that weren't successful, and I'll pull them in and kit bash them together and try to find forms and look for the silhouettes. Just have fun. I mean, this is art, for God's sakes, so it should be damn fun. If you're not having fun, go do something else, realize it's not as close as being fun, and come back to art. That's what I suggest. So I'm now just going to kind of build up, and I got some weird part of the scanned actor space that I was pulling. I got some of that nose kind of kicking back in. I don't necessarily probably want to, I don't know. I've done a lot of where in the skull, like just the nasal cavity. So I don't want to probably pull in. I'm going to probably try to, like if I pull in, that's just the typical. I might try to go and make it to where, who knows. But that looks comical. It's not quite the direction. So I'm going to hold off on the nose for a second, until I kind of figure out more of this form on his mouth and how I want to deal with it. Because right now he's pretty alien just by the fact that I took out the nose and I made those eyes a lot larger. So, hey Mr. Green, welcome. Yeah, Greetings, yeah. Well, greetings from America to Russia. What I would say, yeah, just relax, just have fun. I mean, if this, you're building up your skill, and to me, you never stop continuing building up your skill until the day you die. That's pretty much it. As an artist, you were never done, to me. So it's not going to happen overnight. It takes years. It's kind of like going from like a tit to a beer. It takes 21 years. Just relax. You know, don't rush it and just have fun with it. There's always somebody that, you know, looks like they are just insane, and then how could they do that? Well, they've been practicing, you know, so it just takes time. So I'm going to kind of just, I might play off of some of the wrinkles off this form, just for a shits and giggles, just try to sit there and see what I can kind of find. And I'm keeping it pretty low from this as I'm trying to find this out. But what I'm going to do now, since I have the head, since I have the eyes, I'm going to show you guys something called ZSphere. Like I usually take spheres, like a general append a sphere, and then move this symmetries on. And I've been showing a lot of these where I've been just building, pushing and pulling, looking for the forms, creating those, which is great. You know what I mean? Like, let's say if I want more of, like, if I'm going to say this is an insect and I want to do like some kind of weird horns, you know, you can play off this. This is where, as long as you do not have any kind of geometry onto this mesh and this subtool, then you can turn on Z Sculptress, and then that way you can actually use the move tool. You can kind of clean it up, and you can do some pushing and pulling and creation as well. That's new. There is an older thing within ZBrush that I'm not too sure a lot of you guys know of, but let me go ahead and just say, like, off of this, I'm going to hide it. Just click that on. And let me go ahead and save as this progression as I go. Always good to save. Okay. I'm going to show you there's something called ZSphere, which is if you append, down here you have the ZSphere. Now the ZSphere is, I don't know if some of you guys have seen, this is where you can manipulate this sphere and you can kind of create quick characters, and it gives you a general, you can pull out, I can make horns, you could do a couple different stuff to it. So to show you, within the draw tool right now, if I hit solo, you can actually see a little green sphere. Now, depending on how big your brush size is, that's how big, you know, or small, it's just pulling up the sphere. It's not based on your brush, it's based on your drag. So if I want this to be really large, I could just keep pulling down, okay, so I can overtake it. So let's just say I want to pull out some of these. Going to the move tool allows me to take this and move this corresponding sphere that I'm on. As you see, the symmetry is happening. So as long as I have symmetry on, I can, you know, whatever I do on one side will work on the other. If I turn off X, which is the symmetry, then it becomes asymmetrical. So I'm going to go back to my draw tool, okay, which is your W is your move tool, Q, I'm sorry, is your draw, and then E is your scale, and then R is your rotate. That's the default for it. So I'm going to go back to my draw. So right now I'm just using my hotkeys, and I'm going to do the draw, grab the move, and I'm just drawing out something really quickly. To actually see, because right now these are just general spheres, I'm going to hit A, and A is going to turn on something called adaptive skin. So down underneath your display properties, unified skin is called adaptive skin. Right here, the density is 2. So what it is it's just going 2 divisions on that sucker. If I turn this to 4, it's going to just give you a little bit more divisions and smoothing. So whatever you, just be careful you don't go insane and draw a lot. So what this allows me to do is like, okay, well, I want to take this and move so I can play in case I want to do any antennas. All I have to do is, let me see. No discard changes. Okay, because I actually moved while that it was an adaptive, it would just say to keep it. So I'm going to go back down to here. I'm just going to move up this where I want it. So let's say I want him to have some kind of weird antennas, maybe do more like a rhino. So I'm going to go back to my draw tool, make sure the green, and I'm going to go move. And let's say I want him to be kind of Where's my adaptive? And okay, now I've got a couple things out that I'm just kind of playing with, just to get an idea. So maybe he's an alien. I said insect. He's going to probably maybe have some horns, possibly. I'm just checking it out. He might just have little stuff. I'm just quickly checking this to see what I want to be doing. So, hey Shaban, yeah, using DynaMesh or just subdivide. It's a mixture. If you go through my different episodes, I kind of show you why I do certain processes, and it's just if it works for you, just try it. You know, there's so many different ways. There's like 4 or 5 different ways to do everything within ZBrush, so it gets pretty convoluted and difficult. So I try to show simple processes and just relax, because again, I want you guys to have fun. But this is basics, and basics are key for everybody, beginning to professionals. You know, and if you're a professional who says I don't believe in basics, then you're not a professional in my mind, because it's like you really need to know everything has form, substance, and flow, and you need to know those things to make sure you're doing your job. So, how's it going, Michaelo? Hey, Tybin. Yay, how's it going? Good, good. Hope you're having a good day too. So, all right, now ZBrush might have just crashed on me. I'm gonna wait. Okay, there it goes. I was just thinking. Okay, so now that I'm in, I'm going to go back to the draw tool. Whenever you go down, as you can see right here, the different pulls, I can actually just click anywhere on this line, and then that will give me another sphere. So then I can actually manipulate and move that sphere. So this is kind of great to kind of allow, like if I want to have a little bit more of a flow out, or if I want to sit there and spike out different ones. Like let's say if I want to give him a tiny little sphere here. Okay, I'm going to go back to my move tool, go back to my draw. I'm going to scale these down just a little bit, and maybe scale this one up. Okay, and let's go back and alright. So let's say I'm just getting kind of some weird tree branch. Okay. Come back up to this one, draw, tree bench. Okay. So now I have this kind of going. I'm thinking like a rhino. What are those rhino bugs, whatever that has the horns kind of stuff. As soon as I turn on adaptive skin, you can actually see how that's going, and then you can manipulate. Once you start manipulating this as this piece, it's going to kind of ask you if you want to keep your changes, right? So because you're actually sculpting and manipulating this. So if I hit an A to go back down to the ZSphere basis, then it's going to sit there. Would you like to create a PolyMesh 3D, which is just going to create another subtool where you're actually going to be able to sculpt? No, discard the changes that you've done, or cancel, stay in the preview mode to default if I want to continue. Like if I hit cancel, I'm just going to continue in this one to keep manipulating. I can change. Now if you notice right there, I was in Sculptures, so I can easily go into this, because it's in this mode right here, it is a subtool. It's treating. That's why it's asking me. But as soon as I want to go out, I could say, no, let's discard the changes. I'm back into this. Okay. So this is a great way just to kind of play, and it's a little bit more advanced way of just doing the Z-spheres, because you can, I mean just the spheres, so I could actually just push and pull. If you don't like a sphere, in your draw mode, you just hit Alt, and you'll actually take out some of those. Okay, so whichever one you want, you can take those out. All right, so let's say I just want to have this possible shape in here. Okay, I'm going, my adaptive skin is 4. That's fine. Let's go actually down to 2. I don't necessarily need. My DynaMesh range right here, this is how much detail is going to carry. So I'm going to go back down to 64, and I'm going to say make adaptive skin. So pretty much what I was doing before, like if I started manipulating this, as soon as I try to go back out, it's just going to make an adaptive. It's just hitting this button and making an adaptive. So I'm just going to say, yes, create PolyMesh 3D. And what that does is it creates another subtool, so I can keep this as a subtool. So I can just quickly grab that. That's my Z-sphere, so I could always keep that in my level, and then I can actually just start smoothing up and manipulating this form. So let's just say we are just going to sculpt this a little bit. I'm going to go down And let's see if we can actually reconstruct subdivision. We can't, because a lot of times within the Z-sphere it creates triangles, and that kind of causes some issues. So, and I actually was doing one side. So if you ever find to where, like, I was doing something like this a little bit far along, but I accidentally didn't have any kind of symmetry on, I could do two things. I can actually go down to my lower level, and I can actually just go to my deformation, and I could just say smart resim. It's going to analyze it. Okay, it's going to tell me my poly counts, like what's there, 99.98 whatever should be good, and then resim. And so what that is doing is going to go ahead and just check one side, analyze the mesh, determine whatever, and try to balance it to the other side of the mesh. How successful this number is going to be will tell you how successful it was. So if it's like, it will sometimes kick back and say, I can't do anything. It could take a little bit of time too. So just be aware. Resim, once you've actually done the smart resim, it just kind of, I just back and forth until I get a certain amount. 99.7% is fine. So then I just make sure that I have symmetry back on whenever I want to do that. Okay. So I'm at subdivision level 1, and then I can just kind of start sculpting, start playing. Now this is a little bit still pretty high for me. It has triangulation in it already, so I'm not too happy with it. Not really happy with the size either. So I'm just manipulating. Now because I had that on symmetry, I had my dynamic subdivision or dynamic perspective on as well, was kind of getting off. So be careful when you have symmetry on and you're rotating something, it can get kind of confusing. So if you see right there, I pushed into space, whereas if I stick just with this, I'm grabbing the outer, I'm not moving in depth. That will help. If you ever are moving something, you can turn off symmetry, but you might be able to get it off, like right there. See, if I push, it's going and screwing it up. If I turn off symmetry, I could also hit this little Google thing to kind of get back to home, and I can actually hit the home to actually make sure it's back on the pivot point, and then I can manipulate and rotate and move. Okay, so I'm not too sure about that. But this is pretty, it's got, as you see right there, the polygroup separation down by the Z-sphere, so it's not very clean. I don't like working on anything that's not too clean. It makes it very difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and make a clone of this new piece. If you have something hanging that you want to get rid of into the file, just go ahead and delete, and it will take out that subtool. So in case you're you have tons of stuff that you're getting kind of lost, which is which. So I now know that is there. And I'm going to just go down to my, delete the higher in here. And I'm going to go to ZRemesh. I'm going to make sure my symmetry is on, and let's bring this down to like 0.5. And this might take a second. Type in delete one certain Z-sphere, just Alt, just click. While you're in the draw, you have to be on draw, and then once you're on draw, you just hit Alt, and it will actually take out a sphere. So if you have a sphere in between two spheres, you hit the middle one, it would just disappear and go straight. If you hit the outer one, it would just go away. So right here, as you can see, it broke down the Z-sphere. If that is still too much, I'm going to go down to 0.1 and just Z-sphere off of this one. That way I just have a general shape, and it's all quadded. Double check on the quad, no holes, that's good. So then I can come back into here and say insert the new skin, and I can take out this one. Then while I'm on this new cleaned up, my sculpt is going to be a lot better to handle and flow. So those are some of the different techniques that you can play with. And let's see if I want to. So now I could use that to build up some of my forms, figure out what I want to do. If I'm going to do this rhino bug thingy, whatever, make it kind of sharp. I'm using the trim dynamics to actually just kind of sharpen things up. And there's some interesting shapes here. And if I need to go down, I can do that in flat to blow up in case I want to make these kind of like some weird balloon balls. With, like I was doing neck testes last one. So these might be horn testes or whatever. So let's just play. So this is just an idea. And what I like to do, honestly, is just to throw things out, see if it works, see if it doesn't. If it doesn't, all I have to do is just hide this or rework it, and it'll be good. Okay. All right. So if I want to shrink this down in flat, I'm going to hold down Alt to kind of push in on its center. That's another trick in case you guys didn't know. You could also use the move tool to kind of move in a different space, however you want. It's all set. Okay, so let's go back to see if bringing in this extra previous one, if we can do anything with it. This is again kit bashing different pieces together. And I'm just turning off. Yeah. Not really digging this so far, so I might play with it just a little bit, or just start over. If I can't find something within a few moments, then I'm just going to kind of jump into something else, go back and sculpt in a different area. Turn on Sculptress. What this does is it kind of allows me to take out certain parts. I could still move and do quite a few other things. And it looks like it got off the gizmo, like got off a little bit, so I'm going to my symmetry. I'm just going to make sure I'm in the center. I'm going to make that into the home. Okay. And it looks like it did get kind of screwed up at some point, like as you see from the front. So I'm just recentering. The symmetry is still kind of working on this one, but I'm going to kind of clean this up. And you could also, since I have no geometry levels, you can go to the geometry tab down to here to the modify topology, and mirror and weld is on the X, and I'm just going to say mirror and weld. So whatever is on one side, usually I think it does the right side. I think it does this side first and flips it to this one, or maybe vice versa. So it just says snap across the 0 pivot line. It just says whatever's on this one side, it's going to flip it to the other side, because there's no divisions on it. It's sort of like doing within the deformation the smart resim, except to do this one you have to have levels, or this is what you use to actually have it. You have like 4, 5, 6 different levels. Any kind of levels on that will actually help you. So now that this is set, I'm still in the Sculptress. I'm just going to clean this up, turn back off my isoline, and just see. I'm going to go down in a smaller brush size to kind of get some more. As you see, these are the vertices. So what Sculptress does is on the fly, it decimates based on the brush size. And you can actually find that information up in your stroke within the Sculptress Pro. You can set your division levels, the size, everything else, adaptive and combined. I usually keep this just default because I use the Sculptress as just a quick tool to get some ideas down. Okay, so I want to be careful about how much the balance is on how big his head gets. So this rhino piece is pretty large, and because it's so large, I'm actually kind of trying to adapt the size with this. So if I go ahead and I just look at actually let me show you guys really quickly. A lot of times I'll turn this to black and I'll just take a look at the silhouette, just to actually see what I'm seeing. But I think this piece right here is just a little bit too large for its size. The gizmo is rotated right now. It's kind of screwed up. I have symmetry on. I'm going to go ahead and turn off symmetry again, click it to the centerpiece. But I'm going to hold down Alt and click on this little rotation button. What that does is you see the Alt button unlocks the little lock. Excuse me for the gizmo. So by unlocking, I'm just saying reset the pivot so it's back on the XYZ of the scene. Okay. If I want to sit there and move the pivot, I'm holding down Alt and I can move the pivot, which allows me to kind of get it more into the placement if I want. Because if I have the pivot up here and I start to scale down, it's going to pull right to sort of what the local symmetry does. It resets the pivot, so it's going to go to the pivot. I kind of want to center this a little bit, and then I'm going to shrink this down on the pivot to see where I'm at, because I want to move. And I might pull this out. So I might treat these now as sort of like the eyebrows. And I was on Sculptors, and because that had a level on this, it just kicked off on me. So that's fine. Okay. So now that I've done that, this piece feels a little bit larger, so I'm just going to manipulate the size. I kind of like the fact that it's kind of playing off of this little section here, because I might use these as antennas or connection pieces. And I'm just playing, because I'm thinking insect, I'm thinking, you know, some of the detail. But let's get back to the main face. Now that I have a few of these things figured out, I'm going to flesh up a few of the areas, meaning I'm just going to add some love to the character to figure out what I want to do with it. So I'm just going to kind of wrinkle up his skin, define the direction of his chin and skin. And I'm going to utilize some of the different detail and data that was in the original scan to play with the flow of the character. So this guy is, I don't know, he's just a general bug, bug alien, just having fun with him. I do like how when I pulled the ears, it kind of had this weird angle pull. So I'm going to keep some of the detail of what a normal human ear is, but I'm going to maybe say he has a big, like of course we have our hearing goes in here, but what's to say maybe he has two little sections of where hearing goes. So I'm going to kind of pull that out, and then this will be like a big vein that goes into, or another hearing duct, whatever, that kind of pulls into it. Now, if I had, like, let's say if this is going to be the new bone or whatever, then you could actually do some tricks, like if you want some skin to where it kind of pulls in. You already have the depth in this one. How I usually do is I'll just build up some skin right here and just kind of pull and then just bury, so it looks like there's skin kind of going over top. Okay. So let's just give him a little bit more of a droop, and because that bone, like maybe his flesh is kind of hanging down and kind of looping back up. So I'm basing a lot of this stuff on anatomy, weight. You know, bone is solid, but of course fat and muscle, fat especially, has weight to it. So gravity hits weight. So you want to kind of just do a couple different things to just make sure it flows. And that's, I think, sometimes what happens to a lot of people. They don't take that knowledge from the anatomy, even because, I mean, I have no damn clue what an alien anatomy looks like. I'm basing this off of what human anatomy is, which I have studied, and just kind of making up stuff as I go along. I know about, you know, cloth. You know, when I was at Disney, we used to have a board with all the different types of clothing, cloth, whatever, like leather, heavier, silk, everything else. We just used to sit there and tack it up and take a look at flow and take a look at shapes that are created from it based on different thickness and what it reacts. Same thing in flesh. You know what I mean? You can kind of treat it. This guy is very silky, transparent, Rhino skin has no, I mean, that's just like heavy leather, so it can give me some ideas. So that's all I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of looking for some of those shapes, and I'm using some of this trick of, okay, well, this right here, because it's coming at an angle, well, if it's really hanging, then I need to kind of maybe pull this flesh back just a little bit, because it's hanging off the bone. It can have a little bit of direction, but not too much, because if it comes off, it's going to go straight down, because gravity isn't going out of front or back, it's going straight down. There's always a constant pull. So I'm going to kind of just use that knowledge to kind of say, okay, here's the main, and then I can have some secondary folds from that based on maybe the muscle, or there might be something over here. So, all right. And just, like I said, if it doesn't look right, correct it, you know. Let's go ahead and keep, so I'm messing with his ear just to kind of give some oddity to it. So, all right. So once I kind of have that in, if I'm going to keep this piece here, I either can, if I like this kit bash piece, the rhino horn coming into this placement, then I can actually just lock it into place by having it connect. So if you have bone or things going with the flesh, it's better to say they're aware of each other. Because right now, he's just sitting on top, right? I mean, it's just like that bone is not really connected. That rhino horn is just stuck a place, like if I just took glue and just popped it on there. To do that, I can actually just kind of inflat around a little bit, or maybe build up some of the flesh here on top to actually say that this rhino horn is connected. The flesh has found it and it's built around it, or it's part of them. Okay, so once I do that, this now looks a little bit more in place. Okay. Inflat just basically takes the center mass and just blows it up like a balloon. So I really like inflat because it just kind of gives a little bit more of that flesh, that heaviness to it. As we do it, I'm going to maybe make his top eye just a little bit. I'm just undoing it. Didn't really quite dig it. Maybe here. Okay. So now that I have this, I like some of the design going on. I'm going to detail out the sections that I like how, if this is the flesh piece or part of his eyebrow, this actually might be where I have some antennas coming out over top. Because like I said, he's an alien bug. I don't know what the hell he is. And I'm going to come into the nose, and I'm going to kind of see if I want to okay. And let's go ahead and detail out the eye. So what I'm using is the DAM standard. Damien actually did this brush. It's really helpful. And what it does is just like a nice little cut. If you hold down Alt, it will give the opposite. It'll do a very sharp point out, which I use to kind of do like tiny little bumps if I'm making my own kind of pimples and shit. Okay. And let's go ahead and just detail out that little ocular flesh piece right here. Okay. Now, since I had this kind of going on, I'm going to give him a little bit more crow's feet, a little bit more of the wrinkles. I see a few things left over from the initial scan, which is great to kind of pull from. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making sure that the flow is working. I want this right here is a strong indication of where I want you to look, right? So I'm having this little piece kind of come straight up, and then that's a big piece here. I need to have something that maybe kind of will bring your view down, kind of to work around. It's sort of like looking at a painting. Like a lot of the masters actually used to sit there and have a lot of directional for you to kind of pay attention to it. So same thing with on a sculpt, and you need to kind of have that work to make the sculpt interesting. You need to kind of work that around, which is a little bit more difficult sometimes because it's in a 360 degree character. So okay, I'm going to bring these down a little bit, using the move tool to kind of populate and bulk up. Okay. And because I'm a higher level, I'm getting some of that skin detail. When I inflat, it kind of gets all kind of funky, but I'm just smoothing it out to kind of make it a little bit more natural. Thank you, Dan Niffer, I appreciate it. Can you show the easy way for masking using transpose? I'm having trouble using this tool. Transpose, you're talking about like, okay, so what Subhan is talking about, like if you, masking is just a general, I'm holding down control. So let's say if I want to just sit there and have something that comes off his head, I'm going to just mask out the area that I want. I'm going to hold down control and click. Okay, and then this allows me to just kind of move that area. Usually what I do is I'll go down a few levels to do, because I don't want to, the more detail you have, the longer it takes your computer. You could use the transpose tool, which is if I go to move, if I turn off the gizmo, this is the transpose tool. The transpose tool is just the old way that they had it. If I hold down shift and I just drag, I'm going to drag from the point of contact. Okay, the shift just allows me to kind of snap. So as you see right there, it's kind of snapping every 5 degrees. If I just click and drag, I'm able to move freely. And so usually I just do drag and pull from there. Now this is really good for like, it's like a joint. Okay, so if this is the shoulder, this is the elbow, this is the wrist, they move based on that. So if I move this point, I'm now stuck still in this. I'm moving within the red circle, will manipulate whatever happens up in that masking. If I grab the orange, it just allows me to move. So you have to go within. The white tool is the middle, so if I grab this, I can just pull out from that joint. I'm going to go ahead and, so now that this point is here, there's my middle, I can now just kind of use that tool to rotate, okay, to play with this. There's a lot of different tricks. There's actually some pretty good tutorials on the Transpose Master, but this just allows you to play with things quite a bit. If I hold down Alt, it's going to work on whatever joint that I created. So if I come down to here, I'm actually just playing, Alt is constraining to whatever joint point you had. So, okay. The gizmo is like the newest one to do, which has a little bit more functionality. When I'm grabbing certain kind of like subtools, I use the old transpose, to be quite honest. So I hope that helped. I mean, there's so much more detail to those things that I suggest you just take the time to go back over and utilize some vids on those and just kind of look at it again and again and break down which one you like better. I jump back and forth. So, hey, Michaela. No, I don't usually start with a scan based. A lot of times I just do spheres. The scans I just started this because when I was helping out Pixelogic do this episode, this series, I noticed a lot of people just use scan data head and made the nose bigger and called it their work 100%. It's not. They just freaking made the nose bigger. So I was kind of taking a look at traditional artists that are starting to take a look at ZBrush and what they're naturally used to working on an actor's face, and they would build up the clay and everything like that. So I thought this would be a nice way to kind of teach those, not just to make the nose bigger, but also to help the traditional visual effects artist come in there and kind of understand some of the stuff using the actor's face to build up your characters and find forms. So that's why I start with the scan data, to kind of help you guys see it. Because again, I'm picking up certain things from this actor's face, but he's nowhere near what he used to be. It's just a quick way to get it. And the great thing about the ZBrush is I can dig into it and I can do certain things, or I can add things pretty quickly, take away, resculpt, and I can even do layers and a whole bunch of stuff. So I was just trying to show a way to kind of help people think about things. Just like I'm very big on using geometric forms to find characters and to find things you're looking for. Some people might go, oh, it's just, you know, I need something super advanced. I need this to, you know, and no, it's just find the forms within the geometry, and then just have fun trying to find it. It's like where's Waldo and the Z-sphere? Where's the sphere? Thanks, Philippe. I appreciate it. Thank you, Streetwise. Hope that makes sense. I mean, it's you can do whatever you want, and you know, if you want to use squares or whatever, that's your choice. But okay, so I'm gonna go up into detail. I'm pretty close to going into PolyPaint since I don't have a lot of time today. Usually I try to sculpt for like an hour and then I'll kind of show some PolyPainting because I never really used to PolyPaint. I usually stayed away from it. Not a very big colorist. So that was my weak area that I said I would try to do, build upon, to be quite honest. To get off my ass and stop avoiding it. So I'm going to take it. Does using dots as a stroke have any adventure freehand? No, they're pretty much this. It depends on your computer how fast it goes. I just kept the default off the damn standard. That's how he set it up. Doing freehand won't do anything really different. You notice from the dots, does the same thing. You can, if your computer is bogging down, you can hit L, which is lazy mouse. So whatever I do, we'll have like usually a within your stroke lazy mouse right here. If I turn on lazy mouse, you will actually, depending on how high it is, you'll see you can make a really quick fast stroke. My computer's doing very well. It's a pretty good computer. But what would happen if your computer can't keep up with the stroke? It would actually just have like a little red line that will pull and make sure whatever direction you had will do that. Because if you don't have lazy mouse on, if it's kind of starting to chug, what will happen is your strokes will start to go a little bit more zigzag. So so for this one, it doesn't really make a difference. Now, when I'm doing the drag one, that is just going to drag one point. And it's actually, the farther I go in, it's starting to pull in my form. So if you see undo, it's starting to pull that form down. So this one's a big one. Decimate without losing any smoothness. Well, I mean, yeah, if I'm decimating something, Carver, what I'll do is I'll go in close and I'll start looking for the little triangulation breakdown. If I start to see the triangles, that's great. But then I'll pull back, and if I really can't see it from like this distance, then it's pretty good. So just decimate to what you need. And a lot of times, if I'm doing stuff for games, I'll decimate down. I'll base it on what kind of texture size I'm going to. If it's a 2K 48 by 2048 texture, I'm not going to notice any of that stuff. Okay, so, or 4K texture, I'm probably not going to notice. 8K I might, because it has that information. But you could also just quickly do a quick trick of smoothing out your normal and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. But again, really, you know, just eye it. I mean, I BS a lot, guys. I kind of just eye it. If it looks good, I mean, hell, I don't even think I eye shit. If I put a picture up on the wall, I just eye it. I'm usually pretty close. I don't use a ruler. I don't do anything. That's what I do with art. I'm just trying to look, and if it looks good to me, you know, I keep it. If it's not quite feeling right, I just take a couple different swings at it and see where it's going. So, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing, guys, is for everyone just to have fun. And ZBrush just allows you to just get into a big-ass sandbox and just try out different stuff. And that's why, you know, these videos, I don't know how many have been successful. I don't know if any of them, but I've just been just trying to come in there, have fun, meet some new friends, just push on my, you know, PolyPaint. Try to sit there and get myself out of the comfort zone and not doing it. So I'm just kind of doing some typical flesh bits that I kind of like to do. Some extra wrinkles. He is pretty close. I'm happy with most of the stuff. Now that I've gone up a higher level, his eye seems to be working pretty well. I might bring up some directional lines and use inflat to kind of pudge up some of this extra weight underneath his eye socket. I'm going to hit solo just for a second so you can actually see what the scan data looks like. I'm going to go down a few levels and I'm just going to move in some of that geometry just to give myself more of a socket that the eyelid or the eyeball can actually go into. And then I'm going to take a look at this form right here and dig in a little bit to kind of make it look like he has a little bit extra weight over top of that eye, because again, this rhino piece right here is right on top of it. So let me hold down Alt and I'm kicking over to the subtool. I'm going to bring this up. And as I was like saying that, you know, by having the pieces interact, now I'm going to kind of start creating that story. So I might puff up that eye. I actually kind of like it to where it was sort of half hiding, half coming down. So because that's almost kind of like a quizzical eyebrow. So this is kind of like my eyebrow of the character. Let's go ahead and just, I'm saying, let's give it a little bit more insect. I'm going to go ahead and just create a quick little eyelid. Let me go ahead and save, guys, just to see where I'm at. Yeah, honestly, it's just like you want to have good RAM. Just pump up the RAM kind of stuff. I'm actually building a new computer that will just double the power I have in this one, just because I don't want to stop thinking or having the computer fight against me. ZBrush does really great, but I have other programs that are just kind of, they scream at me and sometimes give me crap, and it slows you down. So when you're waiting on a computer here, there, and everywhere, it builds up. So hours of the day, weeks go by, you know what I mean? So, so yeah, the Carver, the Pixelogic stream they have is very beneficial and stuff. So I'm going to go back down to the ZSphere. I'm actually going to create, I'm going to append another one just because I'm going to use these really quickly. Now I could turn off my asymmetry if I want to, you know, create something, because I just pretty much want to create an antenna. So I'm going to turn off my asymmetry, my symmetry, and I'm going to go ahead and just move this to this little section. You can turn on transparency to kind of see, because I'm going to just use this to pull from this little direction, okay, because I want to use this as an antenna. So this is a quick way to also, you know, I could use these to kind of play with and rework, or I could turn this into a Z-sphere and use Sculptris to sit there and kind of push and pull. I'm kind of just showing you guys this because that allows you to manipulate, move, and come back to it. Whereas the Sculptris is a little bit more of a, you know, you do it and it's there and you have to kind of rework it and resculpt it. And this one I can come back and just kind of, you know, say, okay, I want to make this super tall. So when I turn on my A, as you can see right there, you know, I can come back and quickly hit 8 again and then just kind of say, well, I want to make this a little bit thinner. Okay. And hit A again. Now right there, if you see, it's decimating. So if I turn this on, the decimation, that is based on, again, the adaptive skin, the density, but also the DynaMesh level. I'm just using this for a quick pull. That looks fine. Now let's play with the shape. Okay. I'm going to use a scale to bring this down in. And I'm using the smooth tool really quickly. Just knock this out. Alright. So if I'm happy with that, I want something kind of wiggly, squiggly. I'm just going to go ahead and just, I can actually just click on this, make it adaptive skin. Because I can hit this, say no discard changes. I made a copy, so I already have that antenna. And just append this right there. So as you can see, from where the Z-sphere I had until where it is a little bit different. So I'm going to click this off. And then I can go down to my ZRemesh. Let's go to 0.2. It's already decimated. I want to clean this up, so I'm going to hit ZRemesh and just kind of like make that a little bit nicer. So as you can see, if I want to ZRemesh this again, what it's going to do is just kind of try to adapt a little bit better geometry. It smooths out. If I want to get some of that, if I put any detail onto that previous piece, I could always just project back. That's where you're going to get it. Now, within there's ZRemesher. It's using a new algorithm that's a little bit better for hard surface, but it still does a great job for organics. You could also click on Legacy 2018, which is using the old one. You could also hold down Alt while you're doing the ZRemesher, which give you a third choice within there. So you can play with those to actually see. Okay, I'm fine with this though. So now I have that, and then I'm just going to go to Z, Plugin, Subtool Master, Mirror, same access, and it's going to give you that antenna. Okay, so now when I click on this, okay, I have those antennas, so I can play. Thank you, Infinite. I'm glad I could help you guys out, or anybody. You know, it's just I've had a lot of students just, or people asking. It just is intimidating. Art is, but practice makes perfect, unfortunately. So believe me, I'd rather just say, yeah, I was able to do this. I've been drawing since I was 4. Constantly learning. Technology's changed. I used to fight technology. Now I just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to utilize it and just make sure I'm building off of my traditional skills. I'm not a great draftsman anymore, but I use ZBrush to actually create my concepts that I use to depend on my traditional skills, although I still draw here and there. And like I said, I'd rather be doing this than anything else, which is a key thing. I'm holding down Alt. I'm going to go ahead and just scale because I just want to bring those in. But I have a start. Okay, so when I hit, I have no adaptive levels on this right now. So what it was asking me, do I want to sit there and just use a dynamic subdivision when you hit S to subdivide right here? I do not like dynamic subdivision. It's great when you're creating some hard surface stuff within the Z tool, which is this right here when you're using the Polysphere tool. But the thing is, it gets really, you got to be careful when you divide the dynamic subtool. It can really chug your computer. I mean, it will knock mine to a crawl. So just be very aware of what you're doing. So I like to work on levels. So this is different than the geometry subdivision levels. So Control D will actually divide. So if you see right there within this geometry, it became a division of 2, 3. So what it's doing is taking that quad, which is 4, and just divide into 8, 12, so on, until, and be very aware right here. I only have 12,000 active points. When you're trying dynamic subdivision, that will kind of jump it past this level. So you just got to be careful. So I'm just going to give a couple subdivision levels, and I'm going to come back into here just enough to allow me to sit there and create some sculpting details. So I'm going to create like a main vein leading up. I'm going to maybe go down a few because I got a little too extreme. And I'm going to just create like a little section there because I want to bring out that little. I'm going to kind of create like there's an antenna, but I want to kind of give some flesh to it. So when I go up in levels, it's almost like a tentacle in a way of my section here. Okay. And that way, when I make it kind of a tentacle, it doesn't have to quite be so precise. It can kind of have some flow and funkiness to it. Because of course tentacles, we've all seen octopus are all over the place. Antennas are usually just more straight. So I'm kind of doing a mixture. And I'm going to kind of just play with looking at the character. And I'm just moving this around to, I'm playing off of this piece right here, and I'm playing off of some of the different directional lines that I want you to do. Remember what I was saying before, that if you're coming up here and you have this, you want to have something that connects your eye back. So if I take this and I just bring this and it's kind of going off into this space, your eye kind of follows that and it goes off into space. It might look fine in certain directions, but I might want to just sit there and pull this out a little bit more and kind of create like a little, directional line that allows me to pick up some of, you know, that horn. So I'm just playing around with the shape. Now if I go down lower, and I can actually can see if I can go, nope, can't go lower than that. I was down to level 1. So I've just got some kind of weird flow. Okay, it's looking pretty good. So it's just kind of like some funky antennas. Now, if it's not, it's too much. Like if it's just like, hey, I'm looking at it too much, I'm just going to go back down to my gizmo. This is where I can use this transpose tool to kind of scale down. I could use it to rotate. You know, I could do a couple different things that will kind of help, which is great because it's keeping me pretty much where I want to go there. And this is where it's, you know, transpose tool is good for this one. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. I'm going to thin it out. Okay. So there's a couple different techniques. Okay, get them out. Now, as I say that, I still want to play with it. That's the thing. If you're having trouble with one section or one particular part of the character, stop and just jump onto something else, because a lot of times what I might do in one section will help me in another. Okay, so I'm still not particularly a fan of this one. I'm going to go back to the new gizmo. I'm going to turn off my symmetry, and I'm going to reset that pivot. Sorry, there's a garbage truck, guys. And I'm going to bring this. So what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the placement. I just stretched it a little bit. And this does get in my way sometimes. I particularly don't like seeing it all the time, but it allows me to see what I'm playing with this. And you could also, let's say if I want to kind of, right now it's just centered in the object itself. I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to change the pivot, because I want to sit there and elongate out on the Y, so I can actually just now use that pivot line to pull that out. So that way I can kind of give myself a shell. Or if I want to sit there and grab this, if I move on the outer one, it's going to kind of move. If I hold this down, it's going to shrink into the X and allow me to kind of squash. So these on the inside are going to be squashing and stretching based on the directional line. So on Z, if I wanted to make it more of a depth, I can quickly do that. This square right here is a uniform scale that I can kind of play with to say, you know, do I like that? Or I can use the move tool to kind of play with this. So I'm just goofing around there. Actually, let's see if I could use this. And let's go back and give some more detail and love to this. As I said, I want to kind of be bug, so let's say if I want to make this to where it's beetle shell, okay? And at this point, if I was really, I mean, I kind of sort of know what a beetle looks like, but if I really want to sit there and pay attention to how the beetle works, or the rhino beetle, I can play with that a little bit. I would go look at reference, and I would actually just see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to use this to kind of interact. Okay. And since I already got those, I'm going to... Okay. Now this is pretty low, so let's go ahead and just rework this. And before I usually do this, I'm going to just save just in case. ZBrush has done a really great job at getting your tool back, but when you're working for a while, it sucks if you lose something. So just get into a good habit of just saving every once in a while. You can have your auto back save on there as well, but just get into the habit, because that works across all things. You're in different programs that might not have a great backup system. It will save your ass a lot. And you know, 5 minutes seems like a lifetime. Wait until you're not saving for 30 hours a day. I've lost shit for a day, and it's kind of like I was able to kind of go back, and I knew what I was doing in the first place. I kind of had roadmap to where I wanted to go, but I still adapted, and I didn't have some success as I did in the previous one. So it kind of is a good way to do it. So I'm going to back this up, and I'm just going to go ahead and make a clone. Did I already do that? No. I'm going to go to clone. What that does is it just takes a snapshot of the subtool, and I'm going to, I don't have a lot of detail on this, so I'm just going to straight on make sure I'm going to do 0.5. Now, if it's taken a long time to compute, it's just because it's really taking, it's having a lot of triangles in it and having trouble to compute. Just give it a second. I'm bringing this down pretty low because, again, I want this to be my base. I want to kind of be able to go down to a low division so I can actually manipulate the silhouette, push around. So I don't want to have tons of polys into it. This is pretty good. I'm sitting about 1500. Great, done. So now when I go back into here, I'm going to insert this little polysphere, and I'm just going to rename it shell. And then I'm just going to go back to this previous object right here, and I'm just going to delete it out of my file. I don't need it. I've already kind of cleaned it up, as long as this one was fine and was all good. And so then I'm just going to go a couple divisions, and then I'm back to sculpting again. So good patterns to kind of keep. Your good habits you built up will just make life a lot easier, I find. So I'm going to go to this one. Now that I have that even definition across the object, I can now come to here, and I can just sit there and say, okay, I want to make this another antenna. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this antenna. I'm going to come here and make a duplicate, go to my move tool, and then I'm going to just grab this tool, and let's say I'm manipulating it to where maybe I have this as a secondary antenna. So let's take a look. It might be getting too busy. Again, try it. Maybe elongate it to where this is his super speed antenna, or even shrink it down. Okay, I think that's too much, too many things kind of going off, so I'm just going to hide it. I'm not going to quite delete it yet, because I might come back to it, but I'm going to come back to this and flesh this out a little bit, make a little bit more flat, hard surface areas, because everything in life has, or organic stuff, it still has hard surface areas, flat shapes that kind of help. So, alright. Let's just make up horns. Yeah, it's like painting with the brick on that one. You're welcome, Yosef. Sorry I missed one of you guys. Let's see. Okay, you guys have been talking. Sorry. You guys have been really talking. Yeah, the bamboo is a really good cheap one. I use Wacom products. I love them, but some can get pretty expensive. The Cintiq I have is up there. Yeah, used to, if you want to sit there and check out a lot of the Pixelogic tutorials, there's some great ones for you to start. Thank you, Streetwise, in case I didn't say it before. Let's see. Okay, and then you guys are talking about Tunisia and a couple other stuff. Internet, Google. Focus, guys, focus. No, I'm just joking. All right. Yeah, can you guys hear the garbage man? I think that's it. I think they picked up the recycling that one, so it's all good. Usually I have the dogs barking, but the wife just had a surgery, so she's in there recuperating and has some of the dogs. So I don't have to worry about them barking every single second on me. So, all right, let's go ahead and just flesh out. I'm going to kind of create some of the shell. And this is going to be a hard surface object, so I'm going to separate and just kind of create some detail from this. Because I've got to speed things up. So, okay. Alright. I'm going to treat this like a except for wing, because this is probably going to go to like a, you know, the black of the shell. So what I did right there is usually I just do like a little dig, and then I just use my clay tool to kind of dig in, and then my trim dynamic brush to kind of, if I want something hard but have like a little bit of a bone feel to it, because bone is not precise. Bone has divots and all that kind of shit into it. So you have to kind of say, is this going to be manufactured, or is it going to be bone where it has some cavities, or, you know, maybe it's kind of old where bugs have gotten to it, or however you want to do it. Okay. What am I doing on time? Okay, I'm going to start kicking in PolyPaint. So let me go ahead and just give this a few more levels so I can just define this out as a sharp section. And I'm just using my smooth tool because I was using this as a sculptress section, so it was kind of rough. And thank you, Lopa. I appreciate it. That's very rude. Yeah, yeah, he was very rude. Sorry. You guys are talking today. It's good. It's always good to talk to other people. Networking is key, guys. Learning from each other. All right, so I think I'm going to keep that a little bit more. Also, another trick what I do is I might do a couple like little things like so, and then I'll just use my in-flat brush to, you know, if I want to make that kind of extra bumps or some variation. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, but you can actually use the masking tool to kind of push and pull out things. Or I just sometimes do the in-flat, and then I'll just use the dam standard to kind of swirl around in case I want to have some weird, you know, bumps or details, and then I'll separate. So again, I'm just trying out stuff. I'm just quickly drawing, not really paying attention to, you know, a lot. I'm just looking. Right here, this is, see that little skip? Okay, this is where I need to go back in and turn on my lazy mouse, and then if I, as you see right there, that's the difference. So that allows me to kind of, and it's also pen sensitivity, so if you draw really hard, it's going to pick that up. So in this piece, I needed it for a second. And if you go down a lower level, you can smooth things out. That detail will still, it will reduce the detail on the top, but it won't totally wipe it away. If I'm on the top level and I, you know, smooth things out, it will wipe out that detail because that's at the highest level. So that's a good way to kind of reduce some things that might be overdone. You know, you could just go down to a lower level and kind of reduce it. Okay. Now I'm just kind of sweeping really quickly. Again. How do you have to get the inspiration for these? I BS. I just make it up. I mean, I'm like this. I'm pushing and pulling, looking for the form and the silhouette, and I'm also playing off of the character or the thing I was kind of creating. So that's why I jump around a lot. I move into, if one thing's not working and I'm kind of getting frustrated because it's not quite coming together, I'll just look for, you know, I'll just go to something else and start playing around with it, and then hope for a happy accident or see what's kind of working. Or I'll do a snapshot, and or a lot of times I'll bring in different things I've created or done just to sit there and kit bash together and look for stuff. So okay, so let's say on this right here, these are pretty much, I'm going to hold down my control and I'm just kind of doing a swoop. If you hold down control while you sit there and click on it, it's going to smooth it out. I'm going to use the transpose tool. I'm going to go to scale because I'm going to see if do I want to make those things larger. Again, that kind of, you know, how large do I want to go? I'm looking because right now it just seems like they are too much. So I might actually want to reduce, because if this is my main piece, I might want to sit there and just change the angle. And I'm going to change the size just. I want them there, but not quite as. Because I have that. Okay. So I can use that move tool to just kind of help me change. I want a little bit of sweep, a little bit of flow. I kind of have it on this one right here, so you know, it kind of bends. So I'm kind of doing like a little echo of whatever I did up there. And let's go ahead and flesh this thing out a little bit more. Okay. All right. I think due to the time range, I'm going to go ahead and just stop where I'm at in this guy. I'll probably finish him up a little bit later, but I'm going to go to skin detail real quickly. I'm going to turn on dynamic perspective just to take a look. I think he looks fairly good. Need to kind of give this a little bit more of a flesh, like this is part of the top, and then finish off the shell here. It's so low if you're getting things in the way. And this is more of a, this is, you know, what I would call a concept, just sitting there seeing what works, what doesn't. And then garbage truck is back. How many times are they gonna pick up? I swear I don't have that much shit. Okay, and I'm going to just most of the times I'm not really concerned with the back of the head on these demos, but you know what I would probably do is just kind of continue. And because he's kind of bug-like, I might use this little shape that I had right there to kind of separate up and even maybe smooth down just a little bit. Kind of. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of using some of the shapes I've already kind of created up here, and I'm just kind of doing this. You could also take this form right here if you want to sit there and follow through or echo. I'm just going to make a duplicate. I could then just go here. Let's go and make sure set. I'm going to reset that transform. So then you can also do this to where you can borrow pieces, which is what I call, I'm going to try kit bashing. And you can say, okay, let's try it in here. You could turn off the, right now it's, I'm going to hold down shift. I'm going to snap it to 180 degrees. And I'm going to kind of use this to kind of say, what if he's kind of almost like a nut? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interacting. And a lot of times I turn off the eye. Turn, you know, like click on an object so I have one uniform color and see if I like that better. I'm not a big fan, so I'm going to delete that out. And I'm not worried about that right there. So, alright. I think I'm good. Just going to give some extra love real quickly. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to start going to PolyPainting after I give some alpha. So, save, just to make sure. Let's do number 3. Thank you, pre-drag. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of like the rhino bugs, but yeah, you're right. I was going to definitely crustacean, and that's the thing with like you know, the difference with a lot of times between beetle and more towards what pre-drag was saying, like crabs, whatever, is that a lot of spikes and stuff. A lot of insects are usually just solid, more hard surface. You know, crabs and stuff are a little bit more bumpy and stuff. So now it's like I still have shit tons to learn about anatomy. It's one of the hardest things to learn about. So don't worry about it. Just keep learning. Nobody knows it all. And anybody that says they do, that are lying. I almost really swore there. They're seriously liars. Say it right to their face. A cocky artist is a bad artist. That's all I gotta say. And the larger your name is that you sign it, you know, usually the worse you are as well too. Notice that little habit, because they're all concerned about their name over top of their art. Okay. So I'm just kind of, again, I'm seeing certain things I should have fleshed out. I didn't, and this is just where I'm just trying to, I'm telling a story in the skin. I'm looking for forms that will kind of help lead the eye and tell the character of the, you know, tell the story of the character, like how much has he been in war, you know what I mean? It's like, do I want to sit there and go, he's been in a huge scar going across his face, like, you know, if I'm going to do this and say, okay, he's been in battle, you know, do I want to add that asymmetry? Do I want to sit there and have super tons wrinkly because he's intelligent, smooth, young, all that kind of stuff. Everything that you do is pretty much based on the story, to tell the story of whatever creation you're doing. So I'm going to go into here. I'm just going to change my thing to stroke, and I'm going to pick up, I usually have been doing just like a nice elephant skin, rhino skin, just because I want to sit there and where the hell my alphas go? There they are. Weird. Misplaced them for a second. So I've been just doing a lot of just general skin. I'll do a couple different layers. Usually I can save within the layer section. Where are you at? There's geometry. There you go. Down in my layers. And I can sit there and say just a new layer and create that. So if I click on this, that's a layer. It's going to record. If you turn off the record, it's going to go back to whatever I was doing initially. It's always recording because it's taking the stroke. As you can see right here, this small little black line right up there. And if you see if it jumps, like I can go down to undo history of 658 out of 1,400 strokes that I've done. So for this demo, I've done about 1,400 strokes. You can click on that. It might take a bit if you kind of click too far. But I have the recording on right now. Right now my intensity is about 25. I usually turn that down to test it out. Different alphas are going to have different intensities, so just kind of, you know, be aware of that. And I'm just going to just drag out a few of it, just to kind of give some of that tertiary detail. I make sure that I have good base, good simple forms to build off. Secondary forms are key to tell the detail of the story of the character, and then the tertiary detail goes on top. A lot of people go straight onto tertiary detail. If there's nothing that you can build it off, I don't care how good that tertiary detail, that high level detail is, if the base and the secondary forms are shit, none of it is going to survive, okay? So you need to make sure that you take the process slow and you kind of work it up pretty well. Now I'm having some breakdown of this, and also I didn't hit symmetry, got off for some reason. So let me undo this one. Okay, make sure symmetry is on if I'm doing the skin. So I know it's kind of rough in some areas, and what I would normally do is I would ZRemesh this object and stuff. Well, let me try it. Let's see, I always worry about ZRemeshing the details. So I'm going to go ahead and make a clone. It's at level 5 right now, so it should be good. So I'm going to make a clone, come back into here. That's the scan data head manipulated. I'm going to make a duplicate, and I'm going to go down low res, and I'm looking for forms. So if you see right here, I'm looking to make sure that the ear doesn't go away, something else, and I just will delete the higher. Okay, I got to go back up high, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete this textured level. It was asking me for the level. So I'm going to go down a few layers, delete the higher, delete the lower. Because what I'm doing is I don't need all that high level detail right now to create my ZRemesh. I got this unsymmetrical. I'm going to turn off half. I want to target poly count. I'm going to go to 0.2, and I'm going to let it think, and hopefully it will come about. And that's going to clean up my mesh fairly well. Now that was a little too low, as you see right there. My ear is getting lost and a couple other stuff. So let's not go that drastic. Let's go ahead into 1. Because all I wanted to do is just to cover the different areas in the face that that does it. So this is good. I do have, like, this is still quads. It's kind of funky, but this is a hell of a lot better than I had. So I'm going to turn off, and I'm going to divide, and I'm going to project, divide, project, divide, project, and I'm at level 4 right now. So, and if you see right here, I have a little bit of issues that is kind of missing, right? So I'm going to go back down onto this one. And I'm going to change my distance here to 0.1. See if that works. Say project. Okay, it's catching everything fairly well except for that ear section. If you're having problems with the ear, I'm going to go back to the move tool, and I'm going to kind of just move this here, smooth it out, and inflate a little bit. So I'm going to help out that little section right there. If it's having issues, I'm just going to kind of help it and project. Okay, and that did it. So sometimes you have to look for those little things to kind of clean up. And I'm going to project again. And I'm going to project one more time. This should cut all my details. I don't have to go too high. Plus, it's going to take a little bit sometimes on the stream. It kind of shuts you down. So yeah, you can kind of manipulate and tweak a few things on doing creatures for sure, but it's not. Okay, this is at 2 million. So I'm going to go maybe one more and project and catch up on some of the chat. Yeah, you can actually just fantasy things are from your mind kind of stuff. You can kind of get like a little bit of, yeah, this is not real, but it's real. And to have something that are a little bit more believable, that's like fantasy, creatures, aliens, all kind of stuff, is by touching upon normal anatomy. So having that understanding of it, like if I do a creature with a funky arm, I'm going to make sure I have the proper deltoid in there, or I might have the bicep that you can kind of see. It touches upon a little bit of what is true anatomy, and then it plays off of that. That's the more believable characters. I mean, if you look at some of the great characters like the Predators and all that kind of stuff, they touch upon a lot of anatomy, and then they'll check out the jaws or do other kind of stuff. So it really kind of helps. So I'm going to insert, instead of a pen, the pen's going to drop it to the bottom of the subtool. I'm just going to insert this new head right underneath. And then that way I could just turn this off. Okay. And I'm going to save what I actually just did before. Got to get back into alphas. Yeah, never, like I make a joke. I said it's like, modeling with a mouse is like painting with a brick. It just doesn't happen. It really slows you down, and it's sort of like hampering. I mean, you might as well blindfold yourself and just try to create the best character. You need to have the right tools. You are the artist. So, but the tools need to be there for you to actually bring that art out. So be very well. I know Joseph does pre-drag. I have no clue why he does it. So he's very talented, but I would like to see the power he would have with a Wacom pen. Let's say there's guys I know that just kind of like destroy me, and I'm like, how the hell do you do some stuff? It just doesn't make sense. But it just give yourself the best tools, and don't make it too difficult, especially when you're learning. So bad habits really can hurt. So now I have a lot more detail to just kind of get some of that skin, and this is just to help some of the poly paint. Okay, so I'm just going to use some of that tool texture to just kind of help some of the direction. Again, telling the story. Starts in 60 minutes. Okay. And this is where like the sculptors would then just kind of use sponges and different techniques to get the skin to bring in. So you can, and actually I think, do we still have a layer on there? No, I forgot to turn the layer on because this was a new one. So that's fine. All right. So this will actually also help me differ from the skin to a hard surface as well by having some details, some pock skins and stuff on some section here. So if I want to do bumpy, actually I'm going to use some of different Elvis. Where you at? Do some pores, you know, something to add up a little bit. You can, if I hit Alt, it's going to take the positive alpha and make it a negative, and vice versa. So Alt changes that. So in case I just want to do a little bit of bumps or some extra stuff on him. Okay. Again, what we see on normal humans. So, all right, and I'm going to probably just leave the rest of this blank because I want to sit there and say this is going to be the hard surface. It's at 6. I'm going to divide this up one more time, guys, just because poly paint, and I'm going to tighten this up, just using trim dynamic to just kind of add a little bit more hard surface there. Okay. Now I'm ready to poly paint. Okay. So I've done a lot of purples, blues, that kind of stuff. I'm probably going to sit there and just first define the shell. Now I could use references and text, and I can bring in the textures of bugs and stuff, which is great if you want to sit there and do that. I'm just going to pick a color. First I'm going to switch over to the one I actually like to use is ZBrush Illustrator Paint. That's just the one that has a nice blue rim. Marlon also had one with Mr. Skin Blend, which is great for more realistic skin, that kind of stuff. I kind of, the blue kind of helps me more the alien side of things. I mean, there's tons of different things you can use, but remember, like, yeah, ZSpheres is a good one too. But first, I'm just going to kind of pick something that's, I'm going to switch over to RGB, turn off my, whoops. I'm going to get them. I like to use standard RGB, and just for the initial one to make it dark, I'm going to kind of start pretty dark on this. I'm just going to fill the object. Okay. So as you can see right there, if I go back over to another one, so I'm going to take these. C is going to pick up the color, whatever color I want to pick. It's basically just the eyedropper, and I'm just going to start seeing how I want to separate some of these off. Okay. So right now I'm looking at the values, the positive, negative values. So it's like if I want the skin to separate, I don't want to go too dark because I want to maybe just have the shell be a dark thing, and I can do some spots and details on it. So from the skin, I can go into this range. I can say, let's go more towards like the, I've never really done orange, yellows, greens, teals. I'm playing around with the colors. And I'm getting in the value range that I want them a little bit lighter. So now I'm looking for maybe yellow, green. Problem is, like certain colors, he'll feel frog to me if I go in certain colors, and it's like you feel, you know, so usually go to the aliens. Browns are going to start coming more into the humans. I'm going to try to say yellow, teal. Okay. This is why I have a problem with colors. This is kind of like sometimes it just drives me nuts trying to find the right color. Okay, I like that one. I'm going to just go color fill object. On the right piece, color fill object. Grab this one. I'm holding an Alt to switch to subtools. Okay. So now that I have that, this is the dark color. I still want to pick up some of the detail of that. I want to have it tie in. I don't want it to be too separate because again, it's part of the character. So I want to make sure that it kind of touches believability with the color. It's not just glued on, as we were saying. I usually like to do a general alpha of, you know, bumps, or you can use these alpha 32 to kind of give some. What the alpha does is it kind of breaks up the skin, so I can have someone that start to pile in, break up the skin. So as I start layering up, it's going to kind of start changing. So I'm using this color to start painting into the crevices. And yes, I could use cavity, I could do a couple different things, but I'm kind of paying attention to where I want that. I don't want the computer to kind of decipher everything for me. I want to kind of just say I want some areas to be darker, some areas not. Not every single crevice I want to have that. I'll probably darken this down to do the blend, because again, there's no ambient occlusion right here. This isn't a cavity, but I want it to probably blend into this color because again, bugs, natures, all kind of stuff, they blend in. So I'm going to probably have this transition from the darker down and do some detail there. And again, if you guys have any questions, I know a lot of you guys have been talking about a few different things, but I'll try to answer them while I can. Dismiss. Okay. All right. Now for the color on the eye, you know, I can play with them. The eyes are going to be starting to be dependent. So I might want to just darken that eye down just for a moment. Okay, and then this I'm going to color fill out. Oh. I accidentally hit fill layer, which is not what I wanted. So, getting the antenna, color, fill object. Okay. All right. That's kind of good. So I'm kicking back to here, and I'm just still using that same color, darkening it down, and I'm breaking up some of the flesh color. And this right here to blend in, if I want this to be the shell and this is going to be part of his flesh, I'm going to probably use color to blend that in between the two. So we can say this is part of the flesh, but it's still not quite. It's like a separation. And if it's not working, like if that color isn't working, then I might have to like blend and kind of, you know, come back to here. I could always go back into moving and you know, play with this and try to create the form, you know, to say maybe this is a fattier little section here. Okay, to blend, and then this is just kind of, there we go, works, done, move on. So I'm just going to go a little darker, and I'm just going to tinge. Let me go up a little bit levels, turn off my Z, and darken this down just a little bit. Oh, the hard surface. Yeah, I kind of work in Max on some of the hard surface stuff. I'm still kind of getting used to it. But I used to model with a mouse when I was doing the hard surface, but now I pretty much deal with this a lot more. So I still, the only thing I use the mouse for really is email most of the times. So, but it's practice. It was very awkward for me to do it for like a little bit. Okay, I'm going to pick up this color onto this rhino thing, and I'm going to kind of bring in some color to the back. Just because I want to separate, like maybe some of the flesh. So I'm just feeling out what's going to be part of the skull, what's going to be part of the blend of the object here. Okay, now for some reason, right, this piece was working. As you notice, right, this got off. So I'm going to come back to here, turn off my dynamic, and double check that this piece is kind of symmetrical. So I'm going to go back to move. Let me go ahead and shape this off, and as you can see, it's kind of off for some reason. So I'm going to kind of or maybe this piece right here got off. So let's double check. All right. I'm just moving that back really quickly. I'm just gonna eye it. Looks like I did a good job. Okay, so let's get back to PolyPainting. So I want to flesh out the character first. So I'm going to pick up this color, this green color, or yellowish I kind of picked up. I'm going to kind of go a little bit into the mids, because just like I was doing just the sculpting, the base, the secondary forms, tertiary details, I want to do the same thing with PolyPainting. This is what masters have done, where they built up layers and layers and layers. It's subtlety kind of blended in, and you saw colors that were just created by the blend of the color. So that's pretty much what it does. That's not my technique, it's kind of the masters and a couple other stuff. So, but I'm using a very traditional skill to kind of help. Now it's still, so what I'm doing right now is I'm just picking up, just like I did before, picking up specific things, using the blend, scattering to kind of help, because I want to bring some of the attention to the front of the face, trying to create some depth, some layers. So some things are going to pop out, some things aren't, and that's part of the value as well. So color, like if I did this in grayscale, you can do old grayscale tricks to kind of like see about. That's my dog dying. You okay, buddy? He's like a cat, part cat. So I'm going to kind of, again, maybe bring up certain points of the ear. And probably pop this out and a few different things. I'm going to go back over to here, go up to the level. I'm going to add some levels to help out the polypaint. As you see right there, that blend, this is how that alpha is kind of working out. So I'm doing by stroke. I'm just hitting a whole bunch of strokes over and over and over again to kind of blend. So this is where it's going to start kind of helping that character. If I want to blend it in even more, I'm just going to choose like a different alpha that's more of where are you at? Like this one right here. And that is a tighter alpha, so the blend is going to be a lot closer to each other. Might pick up. So that's a back and forth. So any way to keep record a color palette? I don't know. I don't think I've ever done that. I've always just used whatever the one, I know in Photoshop, but yeah, the puppy's good. He does that when he wants attention sometimes, I think, too. Okay, so I'm just singeing some of the parts here. Gonna blacken that out. Okay. So now I'm gonna go up to another level. I'm gonna pick this and maybe go more towards a grayish yellow. I think I'm gonna start pulling away from some of the high yellow. I don't want to get too oversaturated here. I want to kind of start pulling it back into reality and maybe gray them out just a little bit. Not make them a gray alien, but just to kind of help. And I'll warm them up here. If there's certain places that are just a little bit too cold, then I'll, like in the cheeks, I want to bring in some believability. I might bring in some color, some reds that I can mix. But as you can see right now, it's just kind of blending with the underneath. Just allows me to kind of pop them out. And this might be a little bit too white for the moment. I'm not quite done yet, so, and it's because this is just very black, but I want to blend. And the great thing about PolyPainting, I could just keep going back and forth, and I can keep playing with it until I kind of get something that I like. Build up those levels. Because if I was like, oh, it's too, I need some warmth, and I want to uniformly, whatever I do on this, I could just quickly do a wash over top of the whole thing and bring in that color. But I'm kind of thinking I just want to just bring here. Okay. Okay. So what I was talking about, like let's say if I want a little bit more of a pink to them, I can grab that color, go to my color here and say fill object. Based on that, I can actually quickly just say, let's just bring it in just a little bit just to warm up just a tad. So I can bring them more back into that yellow pink just by doing that. If I want to sit there and go, oh no, I'm more blue, I can just quickly just do a fill and start blending in those tools to kind of help. I'm keeping those details somewhat there, but if you keep doing it too much, it's going to blend it out because I'm doing an 8% RGB hit every single time. So I went back down a little bit lower. Okay, I didn't know that shown, so I'm kind of curious to see. So I'm going to go back into this color. I'm going to probably go into my blues just to start bringing in color, but I want to sit there and make it a little bit more towards like a shell, incandescent kind of shell. Make sure I have symmetry on. And I'm probably going to do some kind of stripes, some different things on the back here to have the detail. So I'm trying to build him up across the board here at the same time, slowly. I'm not trying to finish off one piece because I want to sit there and see what kind of things I'll get. I'm probably going to go to here. Change my intensity. Okay, I'm not too sure about that quite yet. Alright, now let's go back to freehand. Let's just do regular alpha, because I'm going to start picking up a little bit of the highlights to just help. Because I want to edge out, like wear down some of the edges here and bring in some of that little, that's a little bit too intense. Because I want to separate some of these forms. And then I could do some, like, you know, strokes to actually make it look like it's got some striations in it, some variation that my alpha might not pick up to it. So this is where your hand painting kind of comes in. I want to, like, I'm doing general light strokes over top of that area. and highlighting some of these things that I want to show. Okay, because I'm going to probably bring that to more of a flesh tone color underneath. And I'm using that color to help separate as well as, you know, for the sculpt. So I want to have like a little divot in there. I'm just going to highlight the worn edges just a little bit. Fake out light as well, because we're painting in. Okay. Yeah, let me know how that plugin kind of works. Alright, sweet. I'll check it out. Thanks for the share. Okay, so see, networking, learning, sharing, that's what it's about. Alright. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and just go, I'm switching to the other piece. I'm using that same color, but now I'm just doing the same thing to kind of help some of the detail that I was sculpting in there. So definitely these edges right here, and then I can help kind of, even if I didn't sculpt it in them, I can draw in separating of the forms, even if it's not there. I can fake it. So let's say if I want to, like this guy. I'm thinking like those Japanese beetles or whatever that had the stripes down the back. I can just play that up just a little bit. Okay. And for May, guys, I probably will be taking like a little bit of break. I have quite a few things going on. But I'll probably be back. If not, I'll be doing my own stuff on my Spark, my Twitch channel. Or just look for it through the Facebook or my Instagram. You can, I'll update in case you guys want to still chat, follow, do whatever. Let me catch up on some of this, you know, making up crap I'm kind of getting behind on, so I don't bore you guys. Okay. Alright. So that helps me define out some of the separation of shapes here. If I want to kind of again, I'm leading your eye up that shape. Like, go this way. You know, so. This one I actually think the ZBrush is on Pixelogic's material section, I think. If not, just look up, just do a Google search for ZBrush, whatever, ZBrush material, ZBrush, and I think he has a couple of everyone. There you go. Done. And it's answered. Okay. So now that I have that on this level, I'm going to go probably one more. Let's try to find, and I'm going to bring it down my shape just a little bit more to really pitch out those edges, and I'm going to do scratches and, you know, here and there. I want to make sure that it's kind of, it's not consistent and it's not 100% perfect because it's organic. I want to just sit there and bring out some of those shapes. Because again, it's not mechanical, it's not machine made. This guy is not from a Ford factory or whatever. Unless this is the new version of the car I haven't seen yet. But yeah, you just want to kind of highlight out some. And it was pretty low brush, so I'm just kind of sculpting and wiping away. Use this same level, because if I fill this, then that way I can actually just do washes or some kind of alphas over top to kind of help blend this in. But I have those highlights on those areas to separate that I want. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now, just kind of touching on specific things. Okay. Okay, let's see, I'm going to go back. Let's try one more. I'm going to find some kind of just skin. I'm just going to use this to kind of break up, give some funkiness to the skin shell or the shell, whatever, and just kind of work. And again, if it's gotten too, like if I do, I'm trying to give more of, you know, I can blend it out just a little bit, trying to give some variation. If it's too light, like if I'm gone too much in the value, then all I could do is I'll come back and I'll just either do that little trick where I just blend in some of the skin, or I'll just go back over. Okay. Yeah. So all I'm doing is just variation to kind of help give that breakup. So now that I'm kind of like, okay, that shell is pretty much done. If I want it darker, so all I have to do is just kind of go down to a darker shell piece. And again, I'm going to go color, fill that object out. Maybe do it a couple times, color. So I have all that, some of that details into it. It's a little bit more subtle. If I want too much, I could, you know, too much over the top, I could just pull it back. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this color right here, go up. I'm just going to use that to start lightening up the skin. And I'm going to bring in some warms here. So I'm going to go down to the browns, reds. I'm going to kind of just, especially around that eye socket, just to help him. He was a little too cold. And so I'm doing it in the areas of, like, maybe the cheek area section. Again, this is based on, human areas where our blood is pooling. I'm gonna warm up the lips a little bit. Okay. And I'm using that color to kind of get some skin variation. I'm using this to separate the inside of the ear just a tad to the outside. So you're seeing the alpha that I'm using right there. It just kind of helps. Okay. And I'm going to probably go back to, this color's got a little bit too off on the color here, so I want to blend in just a little bit more, so I'm going to just borrow that color, grab section color I had before, and probably warm it up just a tad. Okay. I'm on the antenna right now. Alright. So I'm using that pocky skin to just kind of give them a little bit more aged look. Now I'm going to do the details that I did onto this. Turn that off. I'm going to probably go back to like an in-between, higher level. And I'm going to kind of, it's a little too much of a white. I'm trying to just kind of highlight, do the same detail that I did to the shell, add some skin breakup, like the wear and tear of like where, wind and other stuff hit it. Now this little section right here, I might actually make really red. I haven't decided yet, just to kind of help separate the fact that this might be part of inside the eye or this might be outside of the eye. Okay, and let's define out the nostril. Highlight the nostril a little bit and some of the outer mouth. Okay. Okay, definitely want to do it on the corner of the ears. I'm going to accentuate this little skin fold, little sections, do a couple different lines just to kind of show maybe there's more. Okay. I don't like it's just too much. Okay, now the eyes are feeling kind of blank, and that's just because I'm detailing out everything else. So I need to kind of come back and decide what I'm going to do with those eyeballs, or am I going to have it dark and truly alien, or am I going to kind of give it, I've done some funky eyes, a slit eye, a frog-looking eye, cow eye, whatever. You got to kind of debate what's going to work. Sometimes it's better just to do a couple different layers, because this is where the soul is pretty much. That's where you're kind of trying to showcase the character and what's going to separate it. Intelligent, evil, happy, sad, all that kind of stuff. That's what the eyes are going to tell you. Again, detailing up some of the eye antenna. This right here, the antenna is a little bit too much, so I'm going to borrow the color and I'm going to tinge it out to again blend it to the fact that this guy belongs together. So I'm going to help blend them, maybe do some highlights by borrowing from the blue. So again, that's leading your eye. Just very subtly. warm up this little section right here. Just to, feels a little bit too cold. And once I have that color, I need to, again, use the mid levels to help separate some of it and highlight. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to wrap this up. Okay. So let's deal with the eyes, and then let's pose them and call it done for the day. Just go ahead and save where I'm at. I've got to take off, guys. Yeah, I mean, thank you for the compliment. Mass Effect had beautiful aliens. You're more than welcome, Avant. Thank you, Dyslux. Okay, so eyes, the section. So let's first go back to the color. We got the RGB. Let's say, so if we go to black alien, that usually works. I mean, going to like where he's a pitch black. Again, this is he has no soul. You know what I mean? He is pure alien. That works pretty well. As you can see right there, my ZSpheres too, I've got the breakdown. So I'm going to kind of bring those up a little bit. Okay. So I can do the black aliens. I'm going to do to where I'm just going to make a duplicate of this real quickly. All right. And I'm going to change this to where, let's go more to high pitch blue. Okay. So then that way you can quickly, if you turn this off and you just kind of click back and forth, you're jumping levels. So you can quickly just help yourself see. You could also do layers as well, flip them back and on and blend back and forth between them. So if I said I wanted to do this one, and what I'm saying by like layers, this is one way you could do it. If I say a layer on this one, and then on this layer recording, I just say color. Am I the right one? Let's ghost out. I'm going to use that drag. Let's do that funky eyes that I was doing before. You know, you can, it's not quite working. If you guys ever want, like, I need to have a perfect circular, just use that. So I'm going to, like, I want an iris. Done. Okay. I'm using the alpha to kind of create my eyes. Okay. Or if I want a larger one. Not too sure about that. I don't mind the haze because it looks like there's something depth in there. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm picking up some of this blue. Actually, like with no color. Trying to do some like kind of subtle haze. But again, with that the subtool, I can actually blend in. This is the great thing about having a layer. You can actually just say if that's too much, you can just kind of pull it back a little bit. Right. That's the difference between the layers and the subtools. So just be aware. Because if I do the subtool on, you know, that's fully on. I'm not kind of blending between those two. So that's a little bit too extreme, so let me just go ahead and delete that. I have these eyes, they're subtle. think that works fairly well. I just want kind of like a haze, like he's not, you know, but let's see, I'm going to try one more time. Because when you give him like a natural human eyes, it kind of, it changes. He is alien, but by having that blank, dead stare, you can't associate with him. You can't talk things, right? Sort of like you're stuck to it. So what I would say is just kind of be very aware of that. But you could do different layers that you can pull on. So if I say I want to have a more high violet eyelid straight on, you know, you can see how that kind of works. And then change up your alphas to kind of go, okay, you know, you can do crazy crap with your alphas when you're kind of, you know, do I like it like that? Do I want more of a high-pitched white? Okay, and I've got some of that kind of, and I'm just going to blend out. Okay, and then I can say, well, that's too much, but if I pull it back just a little bit, you know, I might get some happy accidents. That sort of gives me some things. Maybe not, but that's active. And I can do another layer to kind of say, well, now I want the iris. So I'm picking the colors up underneath. And then so he's got kind of like this weird space thing. If I don't want that to be solid, I just want the regular eyelids. And again, since this is recorded across, it's going to blend in between a whole bunch of them. You know, hell, let's make it to where so you can try a couple different tricks and go yay, nay, and then all you have to do is just say, I'm going to turn this one off, turn that one off, turn that off, and then I have the haze, or you can play in between those two. That's the great thing about the layers, and I can just kind of blend. So if I just want that tiny little dot, I can have it sort of like that. All right, so I think I'm gonna call it done on this one. Let's go ahead and pose really quickly, and we save. Okay, you guys jumped again, sorry. Thank you very much, Avon. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Za. Heath. I'm sorry if I mispronounce, buddy. Thank you very much. Zan, how's it going? Gabriel, thank you very much. Zan, no, I mean, I try to, this is my 22nd episode, guys, so just kind of I try to keep things simple, so just take a look at it. You can do a lot with it. It's just, you dive in. You just gotta, you know, you gotta walk into the water slowly before you go to the deep end, okay? Don't go too far. You'll drown. Yeah, Sean's right. It's a hell of a lot. It's a mixture on the Zan and stuff like that. But hold on a second, guys. I guess that's it, because I think I have company. So I will call it short. Thank you very much for joining, guys, and this is it. I appreciate it. So I'll talk to you guys, and I'll be gone for about a month, and I'll see about coming back. If not, drop me a line anytime, and have a good one. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.